Alison Gallus resigns as the Worm Media chief accuses her and others of misconduct. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on over at the most trusted name in news. In other words, a Kentucky mayoral candidate, I believe, pens an article telling us how the GOP doesn't care about any of us because of their stance on gun violence. And then it turns out a couple years later, he turned around and shot somebody. This is just breaking now, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. We have no idea what's going on with the Ukraine because the markets rose yesterday over the fact that the troops were being pulled back from the Ukraine, and now it looks like the AP is telling us that no, they are still there. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. And a protest at University of Nevada, Reno, where students are walking out to protest the end of the campus mask mandate. And I wish that I had misspoke, but no, that's actually what they're protesting. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, this is going to be a fun show, I can tell you that right off the bat, because I have had exactly 15 minutes of sleep. I don't know what happened. Well, I might have over-caffeinated myself while I was at work. I think that might have been a big part of it there. But yeah, I just kind of laid there and stared at the ceiling for 6 hours last night. So this will be fun. I hope we have ourselves a good time. But we've got a lot of stuff to get to, and the news stops for nobody, and that's why we continue to have all of the titles in multiples of 5 as we number up the episodes of Contemporary. Because we don't miss a day for anything, and if I do have to miss a day because I need a vacation every once in a while, there will be somebody here to come back here and tell you the news. Every weekday morning, sometimes the time varies because of what's going on and time zones and everything else with the guest hosts or myself sometimes, but we will be here every weekday morning to come back with you, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is to get through here. You guys deserve the news. You are here every morning, so let's get down into it. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing, and we have got a ton of stuff to get to. All right, let's get into it, though. Before we get started, though, head on over, check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turns of Pages Productions will be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. I promise the new fundraiser is coming. I worked 10, almost 11 hours yesterday, so that was my project for after work yesterday, but I worked 11 hours yesterday, so I pretty much just did show prep and went straight to bed, unfortunately. So go check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Once we get up and launched, we will have a great place for you to come back down and check out great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, the new upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman, and The Porch Boys. Happy birthday to John. He will be celebrating his 32nd birthday tomorrow. His 32nd birthday tomorrow, so make sure you guys go and wish him a happy birthday tomorrow over on Twitter. If you guys didn't get there and go wish him a happy birthday last night, and go check that out, where we will be your one-stop shop and everything that you need for all of your news and commentary needs. Let's get into the finance. The Dow was actually up yesterday, a little bit over 1%, 1.22%. That was up to 34,988 points, 0.84 points rather. That's up 422.67 points throughout the day. And a lot of this, and both Barron's and IBD are both agreeing on the fact that this was due to Russian drawback up on the border. So now the AP is saying it's not going to be. I mean, are we going to go back down 422 points? Are we going to go down further? I don't know what this is going to happen here, but CNN is going to tell us about what this could mean for your wallet. So We will see what happens with that. Looking at your Bitcoin, the Bitcoin is to 44,031 US dollars and 10 US cents. That is down 414 US dollars and 40 US cents, or 0.93%. So just about 1% down throughout the day yesterday, but it looks like it held for the most part steady throughout all of it. And do keep in mind, according to our great and glorious savior, Joe Jorgensen, the only way to truly be libertarian is to sell all of your assets and put everything into Bitcoin, because everything else could be tracked by the evil US government. And this is trolling a former presidential candidate. This is not official financial advice. Please conduct and consult with your financial advisor to know what is best for you, your portfolio, and everything else. And not a podcast host who is on 15 minutes of sleep in the early morning. So that's what we see coming up out of that. Let's grab our metal prices here. Looking in on the averages, copper is down, steel is up, aluminum is down. Looking at the individual plays, copper is very mixed in the morning. Bare bright copper wire is down. Number 1 tubing is up. Flashing copper is down. Number 2 tubing is up. Insulated wire, THHN wire, and Romex are all down. Brass and brass shells are both down. Steel is also, no, it looks like steel is all in the green right now. I look over, I see brass there after BX shells, and I think that that's a part of the steel plays, but it's not. Steel does appear to be all in the green right now. Looking at aluminum, also mixed. Aluminum siding's up. Aluminum copper fin is down. All the rest of your aluminum plays are up. Radiators, cans, sheet aluminum, and rims are all on the upswing right now. Looking at your individual plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is up, car and truck batteries are down, small foreign cats are up. All other catalytic converters are on the downswing, compressors are up, alternators are down, carbide is up, hard drives are down, motherboards are up, power supplies are down, low-grade boards are down, and PC tower is down. So, we have all kinds of stuff going on here into the markets here. We will see what's going on with that and where that goes. Let's have a look at what the finance has to say. Looking in at Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones Futures, 5 stocks set to take off. If market rallies, Upstart skyrockets, Roblox dives, from Ed Carson. Dow Futures fell slightly early Wednesday, along with S&P 500 Futures and NASDAQ Futures, with Airbnb, Roblox, Upstart Holdings, and Wyndham Resorts and hotels among the notable after-hours earnings. The stock market rally rebounded Tuesday as Russia said it pulled back some troops near the Ukraine border. But Russia's intentions remain unclear, to say the least. President Biden is addressing the country shortly after the markets close, said the U.S. hasn't verified any Russian troop pullback, stressing that invasion remains distinctly possible. He said the U.S. and Russia have agreed to continue negotiations. He stressed that the U.S., NATO, and Ukraine are not threats to Russia, but warned Moscow of immense cost if it invades Ukraine. The market rally remains under pressure and below key levels, but if the major indices continue to rebound, Apple, Union Pacific, Albemarle, Fortinet, and Nvidia stock could soon flash buy signals. Nvidia and Albemarle report earnings late Wednesday, providing possible catalysts up or down. Apple, Fortinet, and UNP stocks have already reported. Meanwhile, Devon Energy, Wyndham, Airbnb, Roblox, and CF Industries reported late on Tuesday. Devon rose 2.5% early Wednesday as earnings topped forecasts and crude oil prices climbed overnight, which, by the way, gas is up another 10 cents in Janesville. Had to go throw a little bit more fuel on the truck. Shares fell 1.6% to 51.42 on Tuesday, still near highs and well extended from high points. CF stock declined 3% in extended trade as CF Industries earnings and revenue missed consensus. The fertilizer giant remained bullish longer term. Shares rose 1.1% to 72.22 on Tuesday amid whipsaw action in recent days, Nutrien reports Wednesday night. Upstart stock skyrocketed 22%, but off Tuesday's night's peaks, Upstart crushed earnings views, easily beating revenue targets and providing a bullish outlook. The fintech firm also announced a $400 million Upstart stock buyback. Upstart rose 4.3% to 109.11, continuing to recover from its January 24th low of 75.15, but Upstart stock is still a long way from its October 15th peak of 401.49. Yeah, that's quite the range. Roblox plunged 16% early Wednesday as earnings sales came in short. Shares rose 7.3% to $73.30 on Tuesday. Roblox has rallied off its January 28th low of 53.63, but it is far off its November 22nd peak of 141.60. Airbnb stock rose 4% before its open as Airbnb earnings easily beat views. While guidance was upbeat, shares popped overnight. Airbnb stock rose 6.1% to 180.07 on Tuesday. Airbnb stock, which reclaimed its 50-day line last week, is working up the right side of the deep base following a failed breakout. Wyndham earnings top forecasts. Wyndham Hotels fell 2% in extended action. Shares climbed 4.5% on Tuesday to 90.29. Wyndham has a 91.51 flat base buy point. So your earnings have got to be just about done at this point. We're into mid-February. We're almost to the second quarter, or the first quarter, I guess it would be now, but we'll see what happens off of that. Let's see. We're not going to do any more earnings. Let's look at the futures. CF stock, Nvidia, and Fortinet are on the IBD leaderboard. Fortinet is on IBD long-term leaders. Nvidia and Fortinet are on the IBD 50. Wyndham Hotels was Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. On the futures, Dow is sinking again. Dow lost 0.15% versus fair value. S&P fell 0.2%, and NASDAQ also fell 0.2%. The 10-year Treasury yield, which cleared 2% again, dipped 1 basis point to 2.04%. U.S. crude oil prices rose more than 1% after tumbling on Tuesday, and there again, your gas is up. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, let's grab one quick from Barron's, and then we will get in and talk about the most trusted name in news to start off the show. Although almost everything I have on the show could have been a main topic today. I was kind of surprised. I didn't know what I wanted to put up on top. From Barron's, Dow wobbles and oil rebounds as Russia tensions return. Fed minutes lie ahead, and what else is happening in the stock market today? From Jack Denton. Stocks wobbled on Wednesday as fears over a Russian invasion of Ukraine returned and investors anticipated the release of meeting minutes from the Federal Reserve. Futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average indicated an open 50 points or 0.1% lower after the index rallied 422 points Tuesday to close at 34,988. S&P 500 futures signaled to start 0.2% into the red, with NASDAQ on track to slip 0.2%. The S&P and NASDAQ rose 1.6% and 2.5% Tuesday, bucking a 3-day losing streak on Wall Street. Overseas, the FTSE 100 out of London fell 0.3% under pressure from geopolitical worries, and UK Consumer Price Index data showing January experienced the highest rate of annual inflation in 30 years. The Hang Seng out of Hong Kong ended the day 1.5% higher. Tensions over Russia over an imminent invasion of Ukraine returned early Wednesday, hitting European stocks hardest. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, said that Russia appears to be continuing its buildup of troops on the Ukrainian border. Contrary to Moscow's indication it was removing troops on Tuesday, we will be discussing both sides of that later on in the show as defense ministers from the Western Military Alliance meet in Brussels. Stoltenberg said that NATO has had signs from Moscow over readiness to continue diplomatic efforts, but there's been no de-escalation on the ground seen so far. Marshall Glitter, an analyst at broker BD Swiss, says it's all down to Russia and Ukraine now. What people think Russia is likely to do in Ukraine is driving risk sentiment, said Marshall Gittler, an analyst at broker BDS Swiss. So we will see what's happening in that. But right now, first and foremost, right now, the Biden admin and the mainstream media, with their focus on Russia, did a fantastic job of getting the inflation report out of the news, and the fact that most of your blue states are now starting to end your mask mandates. I saw another story, and it couldn't make the cut for time, which we're probably already going to have to cut stuff for time off of this, but it didn't make the cut for time because DC schools are still having mask requirements, but almost all businesses have shed their mask requirements for Washington, D.C. New York City is shedding them here, and all we can talk about is either the trucker protest or what's going on in Russia. So congratulations, mainstream media, most trusted name in news, for getting this story back up out of the news, because God forbid we actually know what's going on here. But with that, we're going to get back out of here. Let's have a look at what's happening in the main stories of the day, starting with a tweet from Mr. Brian Stelter. This is a brand new memo from Jason Kilar. The investigation found violations of company policies, including CNN's new standards and practices, by Jeff Zucker, Alison Gollust, and Chris Cuomo. Let's read the memo in full. Team. Earlier today, Alison Gollust resigned from CNN following the conclusion of the company's investigation into issues associated with Chris Cuomo and former Governor Andy Cuomo. Performed by a third-party law firm and led by former federal judge, the investigation was comprehensive and definitive. It was commissioned in September and concluded this weekend, which now allows me to share additional information with you based on interviews of more than 40 individuals and a review of over 100,000 text and emails. The investigation found violations of company policy, including CNN's new standards and practices by Zucker, Gollust, and Cuomo. I realize this news is troubling, disappointing, and frankly painful to read. These are valid feelings many of you have. We have the highest standards of journalistic integrity. Can't read that with a straight face. Those rules must apply to everyone equally, given the information provided to me in the investigation. I strongly believe we have taken the right actions and the right decisions have been made. I'm asking in this moment that we all commit to vital mission we share and the values that define us. CNN, Warner Media, and this incredible team deserve the commitment. Signed, Jason. Jason Kilar, obviously. So it does seem like this didn't have anything to do with Zucker screwing around with Gollust and not disclosing it. This does seem to be where they're sitting back here and figuring out, oh hey, something went on with Andy and Chris that wasn't right, and Zucker tried to cover it up. And I haven't pre-read any of the articles, so I don't even know what this is, but given the fact that it involves Chris on top of all the rest of this, Zucker turned around and put the axe onto Chris once Andy was out of office, and Chris came back and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to end you right now," and he started talking, which put CNN under investigation. And now that it's all investigated, the heads have rolled. But let's actually read from CNN here and see what it is that they have to say. And then we'll also take one from the Daily Wire and the Blaze as well. From CNN, top CNN exec resigns as Warner Media chief accuses her and former network boss Zucker of standards violations. From Brian Stelter, who is, by the way, younger than I am. Nearly 2 weeks after CNN president Jeff Zucker was forced out of his position, his former lieutenant, Alison Gollust, has also resigned from the company. In a memo to staffers Tuesday evening, Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar said Gollust resigned after an investigation into issues associated with former CNN anchor Chris Cuomo and his brother Andrew, the former New York governor. Okay, we've read all this, including the lie that's right here. We have the highest standards of journalistic integrity. Bull fucking shit you do. Gollust released a comment addressing her exit on Tuesday night. Warner Media's statement is an attempt to retaliate against me and change the media narrative in the wake of this disastrous handling of the last 2 weeks, she said. It's deeply disappointing that after spending the past 9 years defending and upholding CNN's highest standards of journalistic integrity, I would be treated this way as I leave. Yes, we'll be reading more about that into depth from The Blaze. But I do so with my head held high, knowing that I gave my heart and soul to working with the finest journalists in the world. And by the way, I'm going to release a book in a year, so go buy my book now. And I'll give a tell-all. A representative for Zucker did not immediately comment. Cuomo declined to comment. Warner is girding for a potential lawsuit by Cuomo, who was fired from his 9 p.m. time slot in December amid multiple controversies. As CNN Business first reported on December 5th, CNN retained a third-party law firm, Cravath, to assess Chris Cuomo's conduct vis-a-vis his brother's sexual harassment scandal. The law firm's initial review determined that CNN had grounds to terminate Cuomo, and that's what Zucker did on December 4th, putting an extraordinary chain of events into motion. Cuomo hired a high-profile Hollywood litigator and told friends that he would seek the millions of dollars that remained in his contract, the network under Zucker refused to pay. The Kravitz review continued, and as CNN previously reported, numerous staffers throughout the organization were interviewed. What started with a focus on Mr. Cuomo's behavior was morphing into a broader look at Mr. Zucker's handling of the anchor and his interactions with the Cuomos. A new New York Times investigation said on Tuesday, among other things, the lawyers asked CNN employees about how Mr. Zucker had handled Mr. Cuomo's suspension and firing, what we knew about Chris Cuomo's interactions with his brothers, and whether any employees were aware of communications between Mr. Zucker and Andy Cuomo. So, I mean, this is starting to paint a broader picture, because what did we say 2 weeks ago when we heard about this for the first time? That there was more going on than just Zucker screwing around with Allison Gullis, especially given the fact that she was staying in the company. And the fact that they were both divorced, it was completely consensual. There was more that was going on than this. And now it appears that it came to a head. There are other details around this. It turns out Allison Gullis had once worked in Andy Cuomo's office. I don't know to what capacity, but it does turn out that she did work there. So it sounds to me like Jeff and Allison knew about this, about what Chris was doing to try to cover up for his brother, and they were covering up for him because he was bringing in a bunch of money. I mean, when you see him post talking about CNN and Zucker, you see all of his simps coming back and begging him to go back to CNN. And there are simps. Holy shit, are there simps out there. There are simps that are worse than this simp that we're going to read about way down here. But it seems like one hand was jerking off the next guy over and over again into a giant circle, and once they took one link out of that circle, all the other links had to fall. Is what I'm guessing came out of this here. There again, they're being fairly tight-lipped about what actually happened with this, so as of right now, we don't know. But we will see what happens with that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Allison Gullis out at CNN after investigation reveals violations by top execs and Chris Cuomo. Allison Gullis, CNN's chief marketing officer, resigned Tuesday following the conclusion of an investigation that incriminated her, former CNN president Jeff Zucker, and former CNN host Chris Cuomo. Jason Kilar, CEO of Parent... wow. Here, let me take a quick nap here and let me see if I can read again after that. Jason Kilar, CEO of CNN parent company Warner Media, announced the findings of the CNN investigation and Gullis' resignation in an email to employees on Tuesday. The investigation performed by an outside law firm concluded that Gullis, Zucker, and Cuomo violated company policies. And again, we have read the full memo from Brian Stelter's tweet. Zucker resigned from the company weeks before the investigation revealed that he and Gullis were in an undisclosed relationship. CNN fired Cuomo in December for aiding his brother, former New York Governor Andy Cuomo, to formulate a media strategy and respond to multiple allegations of misconduct. More of the stuff that we've already read. Gullis and Zucker began a romantic relationship in recent years after the outbreak of the pinko fucking pox. The two said in statements earlier this month after revelations about their relationship went public. Katie Couric wrote about it in her... Well, okay, let me rephrase that, because Katie Couric writing about it in her book doesn't mean that the rest of the world at large knew about that, because nobody bought Katie Couric's book. But yes, everybody knew about this. The entire world knew about this. This was not a secret. But it was a nice cover-up to make sure that Zucker didn't take the heat or get fired or have to do anything else, and possibly still get some of his pension out of CNN before being found out that he had to be fired and had to lose some of this here. But that's what we see off of that. And from The Blaze, Allison Gullis lashes out at CNN after resigning over inappropriate relationship with Jeff Zucker. From Carlos Garcia. Gullis lashed out at CNN after she resigned over the conclusion of an investigation into her actions. Yes, we know this paragraph, we know this paragraph, we know this paragraph. We read the memo from Kilar. Gullis accused the network of retaliation in her own statement released soon after. Warner Media's statement tonight is an attempt to retaliate against me and change the media narrative in the wake of their disastrous handling of the last 2 weeks, said Gallust. It's deeply disappointing that after spending the last 9 years defending and upholding CNN's highest standards of journalistic integrity, which they don't actually have, I would be treated this way as I leave. But I do so with my head held high. So, yeah, I bet you this keeps going here, but, this is going to be another big distraction to tell you what else is going, or to keep your mind off of what else is going on in the world. And that's been one of the problems with news, too. And aside from the fact that this is the second, because I believe Gallust was the interim CEO, based on her position, both with Zucker and in the company. I believe Gallust was, if I remember correctly from a couple weeks ago, was named the interim CEO while the investigation concluded. So that's 2 CEOs in 2 weeks for CNN that they've lost. And I mean, this is a big one in the news. This is my direct competition, as in the mainstream media, and a company that has been integral to pushing the narrative that Joe Biden is doing a good job. If it wasn't, if it was Chris, we focused on Chris because that actually had to do with the governor. But I mean, if this was a scandal involving Brian Stelter, I would have glossed over this entirely. If this had just been something talking about Anderson Cooper, I'd have said, okay. If they'd found an underage hooker named Ming Lee sitting on Tucker Carlson's lap, I would have said, cool. Don't care. But because this is the CEO, and this also did directly involve both Chris and Andy Cuomo, this does bear some looking into. And, again, we do see a lot of reality TV coming out of the news networks. We know about their relationships. We know what's going on with them, and that is a part of the problem. But that's what we see coming out of that. All right. But with that, we will move on, and we will read from the Kentucky Courier-Journal. This is an op-ed from KTZed Brown. Kentucky's concealed carry law shows your life doesn't matter to gun-loving Republicans. Your life has no meaning to the irresponsible politicians in Frankfurt who time and time again chose the NRA over your life. Their support for Senate Bill 150, which allows Kentuckians to carry concealed weapons without a permit, is yet another warning. They put a price tag on your life and decided that the blood of money they receive from the NRA is more valuable. Every time lawmakers vote against gun safety, and thus the lives of our most vulnerable, they show that the hearts can be as cold as the steel of the guns that they praise. When the data showed that 91% of Kentuckians and 90% of gun owners in the state favored the old permitting system for carrying concealed weapons, it didn't matter. When students marched for their lives, when moms demanded action, when a black representative acted out a shooting on the Kentucky House floor, it didn't matter. When I traveled to Washington, D.C. to make sure that slain African-American youth like DeQuante Hobbs Jr., Savannah Walker, and Jordan Edwards were included in the conversation, it didn't matter. By the way, it also didn't matter about Sequoia Turner, even though, well, that wouldn't come until a year after this. It didn't matter because these lawmakers didn't care about facts, safety, stats, empathy, none of that. And it's not because they're snowflakes carrying a victim mentality, whining and complaining that the government is infringing on their natural right of self-defense. So, with that, we read from this here, and I mentioned the fact that this happened a year before Sequoia Turner because it did. This op-ed was published at 6:15 a.m. Eastern Time on July 2nd of 2019. Fast forward to 2022. From the New York Post, activist student charged in attempted shooting of Kentucky mayoral candidate from Aaron Steinbusch. A 21-year-old civil rights activist and political hopeful has been charged with an attempted murder for allegedly trying to shoot a mayoral candidate in Kentucky. KTZed Brown, a University of Louisville student and former columnist for the Courier-Journal, was accused of walking into the Louisville office of Craig Greenberg on Monday and opening fire, the Journal reported. Kentucky's concealed carry law shows your life doesn't matter to gun-loving Republicans. Author of said article walks into a mayoral candidate's office and shoots at him. Now, it doesn't say that he, I believe that Craig Greenberg survived, so Brown allegedly fired several bullets from a 9mm Glock handgun towards Greenberg at his campaign office on Story Avenue, WDRB reported, citing an arrest citation. The suspect, a Black Lives Matter supporter who recently announced that he would run for the Metro Council in District 5, was arrested shortly after the shooting, carrying a loaded magazine in his pocket, according to the Courier-Journal. He was also carrying a bag containing a handgun, gun case, and additional magazines, the police report said. Louisville Metro Police Chief Erica Shields said the motive remains under investigation and that Brown apparently acted alone, WDRB reported. Brown, who was involved in the racial justice protests of 2020, reportedly went missing for 11 days last summer before being found safe on July 1st. At which point he came back and got a gun and decided he needed to shoot at a mayoral candidate. And that's just the beginning of it here. Let's see what's coming here from WLKY. Louisville leaders stunned after well-known activist accused of trying to kill mayoral candidate. Let's actually listen to this, and then we will go back and read the article and see what's going on with that.
Brown is a well-known activist and writer in Louisville. He was involved in protests after Breonna Taylor's death throughout 2020.
WLKY's Gladys Bautista spoke to several local leaders who know Quintez well. They are bewildered by Monday's violence.
Those I spoke to today say they are simply shocked and stunned, trying to make sense of how someone who had their ambitions set on a Metro Council seat aimed a gun at a mayoral candidate and pulled the trigger. Police escorted mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg from his campaign office Monday after he narrowly escaped being hit by gunfire. 21-year-old Quintez Brown is now charged with trying to kill Greenberg.
A lot of us are just struggling trying to make sense out of all this, but sometimes you can't make sense out of things that simply do not make sense.
Louisville poet and activist Hannah Drake tells me she has known Brown for years and has seen his trajectory from a young emerging leader in anti-violence efforts.
That young people and adults would certainly follow.
And the 2020 Breonna Taylor protests.
We are here today to demand action.
It is hard to lead for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year. And you never know what pre-existing situations people have.
And, I mean, these people are shocked for obvious good reasons right now because, yeah, I mean, this is a person who has yelled out about gun violence, especially when it comes from the state. And a person who was vying to be, for lack of a better word, the state. Let's read a little bit from this one here. This comes from Gladys Bautista. Community leaders are shocked and stunned after 21-year-old Quintez Brown was arrested for allegedly trying to kill Craig Greenberg. Actually, this is a transcript of what was up in the video here. So, I mean, that's what we see off of this here is, we're so shocked and stunned that this person could do a thing like this. How could this person do a thing like this? What can we do about it? Oh my God. And that's the big thing, and I think the biggest part of this is we've got to figure out what the motive is. And I do hope that at some point they release it and this story doesn't get swept under the rug because, well, gun violence that involves the wrong skin color and the wrong politics, we'll forget about that, even if we have to talk about a CNN scandal coming out. This is detail on what was found with him here from wave3.com. Mayoral candidate shooting found with multiple rounds and magazines, and I believe he had multiple firearms too. Or at least that's what we saw coming up out of the New York Post article. Let's see what we can find in here. This is from Natalia Martinez. The suspect is accused of trying to kill a Louisville mayoral candidate. Was found with loads of ammunition, according to a newly released police report. Quintez, who now faces charges of attempted murder, and several charges of wanton endangerment, was found a half-mile away from the campaign headquarters where the shooting occurred, the report states. Several shots were fired, according to LMPD, who was credited with arriving quickly to the scene. Let's see. Brown, they said, was carrying a drawstring bag which contained a 9mm Glock handgun, a Glock handgun case, and additional handgun magazines. Police also found a loaded 9mm magazine in Brown's pants. So, I don't think this guy was going here just to go in and shoot up this one guy. In fact, I'm pretty thankful that it was just the one guy, and like I said, it does appear that he survived. But it doesn't seem like he was going in there to do that. He's got multiple mags, he's got the one handgun, but this sounds to me like he was going to go back and try to make a massacre out of this, which again, now I kind of want to see what the actual motive was behind this. What reason he had to go target this guy specifically and be ready to create such wanton destruction off of it. But we will see. Well, we'll probably not see what happens with that. From Daily Wire, alleged Louisville shooter recently met with Black National Group, praised violent radicals on social media, according to a report. Okay, this might paint a picture here. Let's get into this here. KTZed Brown, a self-proclaimed racial justice activist working for the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism, was charged in shooting at Louisville, Kentucky mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg on Monday, according to reports. He met with Black national groups last week and has a history of promoting violent radicals such as Kwame Ture and Assata Shakur on Instagram and Twitter. We've got the details of that one here. On Monday evening, police issued a press release stating that at around 10:15 a.m., LMPD responded to reports of active aggressor in the neighborhood where Greenberg's campaign headquarters were located, and police determined the shooter seemed to be targeting the candidate's office. Multiple shots were fired within the location, and for preliminary information, it appears Greenberg was the intended target, LMPD added. Responding officers safely evacuated Greenberg, who was unharmed but was grazed by one of the bullets, causing damage to his clothing. Shortly after, police arrested Brown, who pledged not guilty on Tuesday morning before the Louisville court. The left-wing activist was well known in the Louisville community and also an MLK scholar at University of Louisville, and is the founder of From Fields to Arena, a group committed to providing political education and violence prevention training to youth engaged in hip-hop and athletics. Violence prevention, you say? As flagged by the Daily Beast last week, Brown met with a representative from Lion of Judah, a black nationalist militia group, and appeared to encourage his followers on Instagram to join the group, which believes that black people are the chosen people of God, not the Jews. The group has ties with the anti-Semitic black Hebrew Israelites. They have to call them anti-Semitic because Ben Shapiro signs their paycheck. In December, Brown announced his candidacy to represent District 5 on the Louisville Metro Council with a quote from Kwame Ture. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Frederick Douglass said the youth should fight to be the leaders today because the men who run this country are sick. Kwame Ture, Brown said via Twitter alongside a campaign video. Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, popularized the phrase Black Power in 1966. Though at first Ture was a proponent of Dr. Martin Luther King's nonviolence principle, Carmichael became increasingly radical throughout the civil rights era. Carmichael had always seen nonviolence as a tactic rather than guiding principle. The King Institute noted in May of 1966, Carmichael replaced John Lewis as chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, a move that signaled a shift in the student movement from an emphasis on nonviolence and an integration towards black militancy. So, that's your history lesson on Carmichael. Brown's Instagram page is also littered with multiple posts to Ture, including one from 77 promoting Pan-Africanism. The socialist movement promoted by Ture, arguing that all descendants from Africa-based nations should unite around their racial history. in 1969. Yeah, this is another history lesson on Toure. But it does kind of start to paint a picture of what this guy was being taught to believe before he went in and tried to blow away a mayoral candidate. So that's what we see off of there. We've got another one here from WLKY. Bond raised for man accused of shooting at Louisville mayoral candidate. Mental evaluation planned. I have no author given on this one. A Louisville man facing multiple felony charges accused of trying to kill a mayoral candidate faced a judge on Tuesday morning. Quintez Brown, 21, was at a 9 a.m. arraignment to formally hear the charges against him, which are attempted murder and 4 counts of wanton endangerment. His bond was raised from $75,000 to $100,000 full cash. Police said he tried to kill a Democratic candidate, Craig Greenberg, on Monday at his campaign headquarters in the Butchertown Market. Looking at this here, it does look like this is talking about the bond amount raised, not actually the fact that they raised the money for that, which is what I actually thought this was going to be. Again, I don't pre-read a lot of these articles unless there's something big going on there, but no, it does appear that no, they just looked at this and said, you know what? We don't want another Darrell E. Brooks Jr., so let's pop that up a little bit. Let's see what we can do to keep you in here. All right. And with all of that happening here, that's probably going to get, again, swept under the rug as soon as we find another news story to do that. Cori Bush continues on her Defund the Police movement. From The Blaze, Rep. Cori Bush tweets, with a mandate to end police brutality, why oppose redirecting money from racist policing into social programs proven to save black lives? Well, part of that's because it's racist, but, you know. This is from Alex Nitzberg. Socialistic Rep. Cori Bush of Missouri, a Democrat who strongly advocates for defunding the police, appeared to take aim at House Speaker Pelosi by tweeting a link to a piece titled, Pelosi's Defund the Police dismissal is insulting and it hurts her legacy. With a mandate to end police brutality, why oppose redirecting money from racist policing into social programs proven to save black lives? Our movement for racial justice helped deliver the White House and Congress. I think that was more honk honk than anything. Our movement for racial justice, let's see, we won't stop until we get justice. Bush tweeted when sharing the link to the piece on MSDNC's website. Democrats presented an ambitious police reform agenda as one reason for voters to elect them in 2020, and that agenda includes plans to reorient our public safety approach towards prevention and away from over-policing. Moving away from over-policing, it would seem, requires a level of disinvestment. The piece by Jahan Jones on Readout blog declares it's on Pelosi and her fellow Democrats to defend that disinvestment in over-policing, not run away from it when that position seems politically inconvenient. Holy shit, am I about to agree with a Bush? Yes, by the way. Yes, indeed. The federal government should be out of local policing. That should be entirely raised on the backs of the local residents. But see, if it goes up and it goes through the federal government, then they can go get the billionaires. They can get their money and direct it back into underserved communities, as so they say. No, the federal government needs to absolutely be out of policing whatsoever. And they need to be out of lawmaking for laws that directly affect the common citizen, too. All that should be done. All of that should be done on a local level. You know it, I know it. Let's listen to Nancy Pelosi talk about defunding the police. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says defund the police is not the position of the Democrat Party as lawmakers remain split over how to address crime. Now, defund the police is going to lose you the fucking midterms, and that's why you want to do this here. Let's listen.
The other thing that's weighing on people right now is rising crime. And there appear to be some divisions among Democrats about how to handle it. Your colleague, Karen Bass, running for mayor of Los Angeles, is trying to increase the police force in L.A. Cori Bush, Congresswoman from Missouri, is saying it's time to defund the police. He's sticking by that. You're the speaker. How do you think Democrats should address rising crime?
Well, with all the respect in the world for Cori Bush, that is not the position of the Democratic Party. Community safety, to protect and defend in every way, is our oath of office. And I have sympathy. We're all concerned about mistreatment of people, and that's why Karen Bass had the Justice and Policing Act, and we would hope to get some of that done, whether it's no-knock or chokehold or some of those issues, even if we can't get it all done. But make no mistake, community safety is our responsibility. And I quote one of my colleagues from New York, Richie Torres, a brand new member of Congress, way on the left, saying that defund the police is dead. That causes a concern with a few in our caucus.
And I mean, with that, Pelosi has lost all the progressives out of there. I don't know why they're going to continue to put their reps in there, but apparently they want them in there too. But I mean, why would you support the neoliberal Democrat Party that's headed by this woman? Well, technically it's headed by a vegetable right now, but realistically it's headed by this woman. Why would you support that party? Break off, make a third party. Go back to being Greens. But Cori Bush is going to continue to push her rhetoric and tell everybody that they have to vote Democrat because they're black. Let's grab one let's shift gears, let's go talk about Russia now. First with a tweet from Alexander Vindman. And you can see my reply right underneath it. Mine came right up to the top, thank God. Alexander Vindman tweets out, February 15th at 7:15 a.m. However this turns out, it's 100% clear that at POTUS, at Joe Biden, held fast to democratic principles and did not blink when he was challenged by the world's most bellicose autocrat. American adversaries will think twice about testing U.S. resolve. #GoJoe. And I only had one word response for this guy. And you can find it in tweets and replies, and you can possibly retweet it back out and like it if you want to, but all I had to say with that was, simp. Because he's simping. That is what he's doing right then and there. Although I have no idea if Joe Biden has a pussy, because that is a part of the word there, but I mean, this is just gushing, glowing simp. Look, happiness is a thing called Joe. It's not a fucking cult. What a disgusting tweet. I can't even believe this. I can't believe this is the real world anymore. I can't. Alright. But now we've got to go on and talk about what's actually happening in there. But first I have to refresh this. There we go. Putin says Russia pulling back some troops. Biden warns against Ukraine invasion. From Alexander Smith. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Tuesday that Moscow had decided to partially withdraw some troops gathered near Ukraine and said his country was ready for more talks with the West. His comments, offering a glimmer of hope that a diplomatic solution to the standoff might still be possible, came after the country's defense ministry announced that some troops were returning to their bases after completing military exercises. But Kiev, the US and NATO said it was too early to tell whether the move signaled de-escalation in a crisis, and that the West has warned could see Moscow invade its neighbor at any time. With the world watching for any sign that the Kremlin might be willing to step back from the brink, President Brandon addressed the crisis Tuesday afternoon in remarks at the White House. Let's see if there's some sort of decent clip off of this.
The United States has put on the table concrete ideas to establish a security environment in Europe. We're proposing new arms control measures, new transparency measures, new strategic stability measures. These measures would apply to all parties, NATO and Russia alike. We're willing to make practical, result-oriented steps that can advance our common security. We will not sacrifice basic principles, though. Nations have a right to sovereignty and territorial integrity. They have the freedom to set their own course and choose with whom they will associate. But that still leaves plenty of room for diplomacy and for de-escalation. That's the best way forward for all parties, in our view. We'll continue our diplomatic efforts in close consultation with our allies and our partners. As long as there is hope of diplomatic resolution that prevents the use of force and avoids incredible human suffering that would follow, we will pursue it. The Russian defense minister reported today that some military units are leaving their positions near Ukraine. That would be good, but we have not yet verified that. We have not yet verified the Russian military units are returning to their home bases. Indeed, our analysts indicate that they remain very much in a threatening position. And the fact remains, right now, Russia has more than 150,000 troops encircling Ukraine and Belarus and along Ukraine's border. An invasion remains distinctly possible. That's why I've asked several times that all Americans in Ukraine leave now before it's too late to leave safely.
California has officially...
So, and that's what he has to say off of this. Is, come on. Well, we're stopping air travel to Ukraine, and that might hurt their economy. And Russia, you know you want to, but of course, we hope that there's going to be a diplomatic solution to this. So come on, man, and just do what I tell you, man. Come on. But on the other side of this, looking at the other side, the Associated Press tells us, after NBC tells us that they are drawing back, the Associated Press tells us NATO sees no sign Russia is pulling back troops near the Ukraine. From Vladimir Isachenkov, Uras Karamanau, and Lauren Cook. Russia said Wednesday it was returning more troops and weapons to bases, but NATO declared it saw no signs of a drawdown, as fears that Moscow could invade Ukraine soon persisted. Russia has massed about 150,000 troops east, north, and south of Ukraine, sparking Western concerns it was planning an attack. Moscow denies it has any such plans, and this week said it was pulling back some forces and weapons, though it gave a few details. Those claims have been met with skepticism from the U.S. and its allies, even as they seem to lower the temperature following weeks of escalating east-west tensions. On Wednesday, the Russian Defense Ministry released a video showing the trainload of armored vehicles moving across a bridge away from Crimea, the Black Sea Peninsula that Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014. A day earlier, the ministry reported that a start of a pullback of troops following military exercises near the Ukraine. But NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg threw cold water on those statements, saying the military organization does not see any signs that Moscow is decreasing its troop levels around the Ukraine. At the moment, we do not see any withdrawals of Russian forces, he said, before chairing a meeting of NATO defense ministers in Brussels. If they really start to withdraw forces, that's something we will welcome, but that remains to be seen. Countries in the alliance have also expressed doubt, as have leaders in the Ukraine caught between Russia and the West. Ukrainian leaders have repeatedly sought to project calm, but also strength during the crisis. In a show of resolve, Volodymyr Zelensky declared Wednesday, tipped by some officials, as a possible start for the invasion, a day of national unity to mark the day demonstrators unfolded a 200-meter national flag at a sports arena in Kiev. We are united by a desire to happily live in peace with American businessmen running our energy companies, Zelensky sent a video addressing the nation. We can defend the home only if we stay united. The Russian military hasn't given the number of troops or weapons being withdrawn and offered a few other details, and while Russian President Vladimir Putin has signaled he wants a diplomatic path out of the crisis, he hasn't committed to a full withdrawal. So that's what we're seeing coming up out of that. NATO is saying they're still there. NBC is saying they're pulling back and please go buy more stocks and bonds because they need more stocks and bonds to be bought. And, well, nobody knows what's going on with that. We will see what happens with that, though, as we go. Let's keep going. From CBS, Biden says Russian invasion of Ukraine remains distinctly possible, but there's still room for diplomacy. We heard that from the NBC speech. We're going to skip that one. Let's grab one from NPR, where they say that Ukraine says government websites and banks were hit with a denial of service attack. And this is from Janet McLaughlin. And remember, NPR needs our money, comrade. So hit that donate button and make sure you fill them up in their coffers with our money, because the taxpayer money isn't enough. NPR needs help. They need to stay alive and they need to stay above, because otherwise people might understand what a free market is, and we can't have a free market off of any of this. So let's see what it is they have to say over at NPR, Never Printing Reality, National Public Progressive Radio, rather. Let's read. Amid heightened tensions between Russia and Ukraine, multiple Ukrainian government websites and banking systems were temporarily inaccessible to users Tuesday afternoon, but so far remains unclear who was behind the disruption and overall intent. The outage, which impacted the website of Defense Ministry and the Armed Services, as well as two large Ukrainian banks, Private Bank and Ocean Bank, was the result of a digital denial of service attack, according to multiple Ukrainian government agencies. The reports quickly generated concern, especially with ongoing U.S. government warnings that Russia might launch a massive cyber attack impacting critical infrastructure in Ukraine, such as communications or banking, prior to an invasion. Digital attackers targeted the organization's online services to prevent them from functioning properly, but the intrusion fell well short of any kind of massive cyber attack, which would typically involve visible manipulation of content on the website, penetration of servers, or apparent theft or destruction of data or devices. The ministry shared in a tweet that it received unusually high volume of requests to load the website, suggesting attackers were flooding the servers with illegitimate requests in an attempt to overload them and prevent citizens from accessing the site. The State Service of Special Communication and Informed Protection of Ukraine, which was leading a recent investigation into a website defacement and data destruction campaign linked to Russian hackers last month, published a statement claiming there's no powerful DDoS attack on a number of information resources of the Ukraine, though it also noted as of Tuesday, banking services have always been restored. So, and I'm not completely sure where to go and see what's going to happen with this. Like they said in the article, usually when you've got a DDoS attack, they go in there and they either claim data or they change the website or they do something else with it. It's not just the fact that they shut it down for you for a little while. They actually do something to fuck with you too. And it doesn't appear that any of that was done for this. So, is this the false flag? Is Ukraine bringing up the false flag? I don't know. Or are they looking for an excuse right now to go back and throw a DDoS out on Russia? I do have to wonder when I see something like this here and nothing get changed, if Zelensky is in on trying to raise everything else that goes along with it. So we will see what happens with that. I know Discord was down for a second, but that probably has nothing to do with the DDoS attack, but we will see what happens with that. Let's grab one from CNN Business, the most trusted name in news, of course. Six ways the Russia-Ukraine conflict could hurt your wallet, from Matt Egan. The Russia-Ukraine crisis is taking place thousands of miles away from the closest major U.S. city, and yet millions of Americans would feel the economic consequences of the full-blown conflict. That's because the globalist economy and financial markets are interconnected, as COVID demonstrated. Effects on one side of the planet can set off shockwaves on the other. In this case, an invasion of Ukraine by Russia would likely drive up the already high cost of living in the U.S., rattle investment portfolios, and perhaps even slow down the economic recovery. Yeah, when you can't get anything across and overseas because it's coming from Europe, because it's coming from the Ukraine, you can't get it in a plane, you can't get it in a ship, you can't get it in any of these places. Yeah, that's going to start to put a hurt on your supply chains and put a strain on your wallet. But let's see what they have to say. More pain at the pump. Oil prices have jumped in recent weeks to levels unseen since 2014, in part because of an invasion of Ukraine could derail Russian energy supply. Russia's an energy superpower, producing 9.7 million barrels per day last year. According to Rystad Energy, that's the second only to the US and amounts to more oil than Iraq and Canada produce combined. Supply is already failing to keep up with demand, and investors are on high alert for any further supply shortfalls that could occur through a variety of ways, including damaged infrastructure in a war, sanctions on Russia, or Moscow moving to weaponize exports. JP Morgan that if Russia oil flows are disrupted by crisis, oil could easily jump to $120 a barrel. In the unlikely event Russia oil exports have halved, crude would go up to $150 a barrel. And that's like $4 or $5, maybe $6 a gallon gas out here for the rest of us. Yeah, I need more coffee too. JP Morgan, let's see. A dramatic spike in oil prices could be offset, at least in part, by consuming nations releasing emergency stockpiles, which Biden just drained for us, and OPEC ramping up production. Still, another pop in oil prices will lift prices at the pump, which lag behind move in crude prices. The national average for a price per gallon of gas already stands at a 7-year high of $3.50 a gallon, according to AAA. Historic inflation, which that's going to be affected by the supply chain, the amounts of goods that can get out there, the amount of money that's being printed to be pumped into the military, because of course we're going to have to get involved in this, and the increased cost of transport. Market turbulence. Yes, if it appears that the U.S. is about to be in a war, the markets are going to tank, which is going to take retirements with it. Slower economic growth. Russia-Ukraine conflict would threaten to slow the U.S. economy by worsening inflation and increasing uncertainty. I mean, if the money is worth less and you have to pay the workers more, you're turning less of a profit. So that's what we see off of that. Higher borrowing costs because the Fed is under pressure to step up its bond taper, and in the midst of a war where they have to print their way back out of it, put it on the credit card. That's going to put that Fed rate up even higher, making it harder to save. Like they said, harder to borrow. Wow, I can really read here today. Harder to borrow money, harder to buy a house, like I said earlier. Harder to go out and buy that jewelry, to buy that new car. And of course, cyber attacks, because nobody's afraid of Joe Biden, no matter what Alexander Vindman has to say. So that's what we're seeing coming up out of that crisis. Let's shift gears. Let's look at Canada. From the Calgary Herald. Sounding their horns, protesters roll out of Coutts after 18-day blockade. From Brittany Gervais. The sounds of horns filled the air at Alberta's main international border crossing as trucks, tractors, and other vehicles rolled out from Coutts on Tuesday morning, bringing an illegal blockade to an end after 18 days. Almost 3 weeks they did this. RCMP Corporal Gina Slaney said all protesters voluntarily left the Coutts border. Many of the protesters at a second blockade near Milk River also left, and police are now working to clean up the site, she said. Protesters occupy the Coutts border crossing since January 29th in opposition to COVID health measures, snarling traffic, impeding international trade, and restricting access to basic goods and medical services for area residents. The Canada Border Services Agency said operations at the port of entry resumed at around 11 a.m. on Tuesday. The dissolution of protests follows a police raid in which officers seized weapons, ammunition, and body armor. It's going to be a false flag. Near the Coutts blockade, RCMP arrested 13 protesters, described as being part of a criminal organization on Monday. RCMP said semi-truck and farm tractor attempted to ram a police cruiser on Tuesday, probably also another agent provocateur. Because what do we know about everything that's happened, even in Ottawa? Yes, they honked the horn. Yes, they blocked the bridge, but the only real report that they've had of any violence in Ottawa, where there are thousands upon thousands of these people, is one guy getting into a dust-up with a homeless guy that tried to get into his truck. That's the only report of violence that we've had, and that didn't even get a police report on it. So I have a hard time believing that the people out in the less populated area also tried to ram a police car. I have a hard time believing that. For those arrested at the Couts blockade are facing charges of conspiracy to commit murder. 7 others face charges of mischief and possession of a weapon. During media availability on Tuesday, RCMP Chief Superintendent Trevor Dureau said the group became known as a threat to RCMP a few days into the demonstration protest. Police are exploring charges or avenues related to organized crime or anti-terrorism laws, he said. Oh, how convenient. Something happens against the government, and they just happen to find body armor and a weapon far, far away from the capital where something could actually happen with this. Because this is all the way out 2 time zones over in Alberta. And oh look, hey, we happen to find guns and oh, they're terrorists. I call bullshit! From the Daily Wire, just briefly here, Alberta blockade disbanded, truckers rolled out after a police midnight raid. From John Rigolizzo. Huge authorities movement on Couts where the blockade is in effect. The purpose is still unknown. Let's have a listen. So, yeah, if it hadn't been body armor, I might have said, okay, well, they probably got tipped off that there was a gun out there, and it was probably legally owned, but they had to go back and react to it. But because of the body armor, I call bullshit on this one. Here's the walkthrough of authorities currently in Couts, where the truckers and farmers set up a blockade. So no real action, just seeing what the protest looks like out there. Fizzer then tweeted a video of the Smuggler Saloon in Couts, which served as the meeting place for the blockade organizers, where protesters were gathered together. Fizzer then walked out of the saloon and showed that the RCMP line was set up outside.
Should go through there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And Fizzard has tweeted out that he has witnessed one arrest and the seizure of a tractor and a truck at the hands of police. Good luck moving all that. We'll know more after speaking to legal defense in the morning. It took place in Couts, where the blockade is restricting border access. So, yeah, it does look like that is all broken up here. But he does have a lot of video for this one as well. Let me drop this in the chat for you guys. If you guys want to go see the video. From the Hill, moving over more east, Ottawa Police Chief resigns after protest response criticism. From Joseph Choi. I got oil in my chair. Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly has resigned amid criticism that the police response to the trucker-led Freedom Convoy protests against the pink box restrictions was insufficient, Canadian outlet CBC News reported on Tuesday. Sources told CBC of Slawley's resignation and that he would publicly announce it following an Ottawa Police Chief Services Board meeting on Tuesday. According to sources, Slawley has been accused of bullying and volatile behavior that damaged his relationship with senior leadership, CBC News reported. In one incident, he allegedly belittled and berated a senior Ottawa police officer, according to multiple sources who also told the outlet that he has failed to put forward a comprehensive plan for ending the crisis caused by the Freedom Convoy process. Yeah, I think this is more about the fact that he was completely inept about the Freedom Convoy protest and less about what he did to a fellow officer. I think the fellow officer was just the breach of the terms of service, as you will, to get him pushed out the door for good, because everybody failed on the protest there. Everybody all across the provinces failed on that protest. And it kind of sounds like he's going to be the sacrificial lamb for this. And I believe the last thing we have to do on the trucker protest, yes, understand what's happening in Canada. Imagine you're a hardworking, law-abiding Canadian who donated $20 to the truckers. As of today, your bank can freeze your accounts and seize your money without a court order. You can't feed your family or pay your bills. I have no confirmation to this. I know that they're freezing the bank accounts of the people who are the recipients in Canada. I know that, but the donors, I don't know if they're doing that or not. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But there again, I mean, if you did donate to this thing, I would go back and watch that. And I don't know if Canada can, well, this would only apply to Canadians too as well. But still, as far as the donors go, I don't know if this is a possibility or not. But we will see what happens with that. All right. Let's shift gears here. Let's go talk about Hillary and what happened with her. Tulsi Gabbard tweeting out Hold on, let's get the Tulsi voice in here. The Durham investigation has shown that the biggest threat to our democracy is not some foreign country, but rather the power elite, led by the likes of Hillary Clinton and her co-sponsors in the mainstream media and security state, who work to undermine our democracy from freedom. And Boston Grandpa says, if a morning cable news show can show Durham has nothing, then a defense team will destroy it in court. Well, see, the morning news cable show doesn't have to go, they don't have to comport with these little things like perjury and lying under oath. And you'd be saying the absolute opposite. And this has been my rule of thumb with everything off of this. If somebody out there that you don't like politically says something that you don't like politically, obviously, switch the role and see if you feel the same way. Because I'm pretty sure that, especially with a handle that says Boston Grandpa, I love you, vote blue 22, if they were saying this about that there was an allegation that Trump spied on the Clinton campaign, it would be, he deserves to go to prison. We told you he was corrupt. We told you it was. There's almost nothing in the report. No, we know he's corrupt because the mainstream media told us to do. This is a long investigation, and it does look like there's something there. Now, of course, there's going to be a day. Well, there's not going to be a day in court. Let me rephrase that. But there should be a day in court to see what goes along with that. But I don't know where this ends, except for accusations coming into midterms. What else do we have here? Olivia Rondeau, quote tweeting Jim Jordan, correctly. And I don't usually care for Olivia because she does way too much identity politics. But when she does right, she does right. And Olivia Rondeau says Jim Jordan voted yes on extending the Patriot Act. They only care when it's one of their own being spied on because Jordan says if they can spy on a sitting U.S. president, they can spy on anyone. They're both right in this case. They're both absolutely right. But Rondeau's got to pull the LP party line because she is LP party. Big L, LP. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed? All right, from the Hill.
Michael Sussman, the attorney charged this week by special counsel John Durham,
pleaded
not guilty
here?
to a charge.
Go away. Lawyer charged in Durham probe accused prosecutors of seeking to inflame media coverage. From Harper Naidig. A lawyer who was indicted in September as part of the special counsel John Durham's long-running investigation into the FBI's probe of the 2016 Trump campaign accused Durham of using the case to fuel right-wing media narratives claiming political persecution of former President Trump. Lawyers for Sussman, an attorney facing a single charge of making a false statement to the FBI, responded late Monday night to Durham's surprise allegations last week that Sussman and his clients had organized a conspiracy to spy on the Trump White House. In a court filing, Sussman's lawyers said the information Durham's office has submitted to the court was misleading and unnecessary, and yet could be intended to stir up media and jury bias against their clients. Given the special counsel's pattern of including unnecessary prejudicial material in public filings, there can be no doubt that the superfluous factual background in the special counsel's motion is intended to further politicize the case, inflame media coverage, and taint the jury pool, they wrote on their Monday night brief. The defense lawyers asked the federal judge to strike a portion of Durham's Friday brief from the court record, procedural move to rid the record of filings that are irrelevant or inappropriate. Durham's prosecutors allege Sussman lied when he told the FBI general counsel during a 2016 meeting that he was not representing any client when he presented findings from cybersecurity researchers that suggested links between the Trump organization and a Russian bank. The special counsel's office has been accused Sussman of hiding that he was working for the Clinton campaign when he met with the FBI. Sussman has pleaded not guilty and denied any wrongdoing, because of course he has. And once again, now this lawyer is coming out here, and I'm pretty sure that this is where Boston Grandpa got his information from, is this lawyer is coming out here and saying, there's nothing, this is just all fluffed up and trying to plant this in the minds of voters coming in here and inflame right-wing rhetoric. Well, let's put Sussman in court and let's actually see the evidence then, because I want to see what's going on here. And do remember, the Mueller probe that he's investigating right now showed no collusion. And yet these people are still out there trying to find collusion where it doesn't exist. Let's grab one from CBS. I believe this was Arbold who put this in the Discord. Let me double check that. But I believe that is correct. Yep, because I did look this back up over across Substack, because Substack is not green check verified, obviously. It's essentially a blog, but it did give me a good jumping off point to go back and look at this. So, reading from CBS News, Levi's Jennifer Say resigns over pressure on views about COVID school closures. From Amy Pitchy. Jennifer Say was a rising star at Levi Strauss. The former gymnast spent decades working her way up at the G's company, eventually being considered a possible candidate to become CEO. Then the pinko pox happened. In a blog post, she wrote that she decided to leave the apparel maker after it pressured her to stop speaking about her opposition to school closures because of the pandemic. Say also said she turned down $1 million in severance because she feared it would come with a non-disclosure agreement that would prohibit her from talking about the reasons behind her departure. The money would be very nice, but I just can't do it, she said Monday in her blog post published on Substack by Barry Weiss. In an email to CBS Money Watch, Levi's confirmed Say's resignation. Chief Commercial Officer Seth Ellison will take on the responsibilities as brand president on an interim basis, while the company starts its search for someone to fill Say's role. Levi's did not respond to Say's comments or allegations. So, I'm very happy to see this, actually. I am. Because a lot of the times it's very easy, especially in my situation. If I was working for a company and I decided to part ways with them because of differences in ideology, I mean, I'm not a rich person. I'm not. You guys can tell because I go out and work 10 hours after I get done doing this. I am not a wealthy person. It would be hard to look at $1 million severance and say, no thank you, you keep it. But I feel like I would love to have the kind of courage that Miss Say does. To be able to come back out and say, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's not do this. I'm not taking your severance because now I can tell you and tell the world what I think about you. Because I will never sign a non-disclosure agreement. If I have a grievance, I'm going to tell you about it. So, I do hope that we can all have the courage of Miss Say. But like I say, $1 million would be really nice in this house. I could pay a lot of bills that way. Alright, I wish this was fake. I really do. But it's not. Unfortunately. Courtney Holland tweets out, students at the University of Nevada, Reno protest over the mask mandate being lifted. They chant, reinstate the mask mandate, like zombies. Let's listen.
Reinstate! Mask mandate! 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 Reinstate! Mask mandate!
Like zombies they are, these ones. Like absolute zombies they are. And you'll notice, they're all wearing masks. See, the mask mandate being lifted, unless there is some rule about covering your face to make sure that, you know, they can identify if you try to come in and shoot up the fucking school. I don't know if that exists. Now, if that does exist, by the way, they would have a case for this. But as far as I know, I mean, they're standing out there in masks. You're still free to wear a mask. Even if there's no mandate. They're not telling you you're banned, as far as I know. Like I said, there could be a clause in the handbook that bans this kind of activity. And if there is, the University of Nevada at Reno should go and take a look at that and get that all taken care of, because no, there are people out there that still, I mean, that's the part of their religious belief right now, is that having the holy talisman on will keep the miasmas away. I had to borrow that line from Styx, but it was a good one. Keeping the holy talisman on their face will keep them safe, but, you know, just like any other religion, they have to spread it to everybody by force if necessary, and by force of the government if necessary, too. And it's not for, I mean, there's like, what, 40 people out here. This is not a huge protest because most people have realized, especially at the young age that these people are, that this is a lot of bullshit. They would need to honk harder to get this into an actual rally, riot, or whatever the hell that the left wants to call it back off of here, but get some paid actors off of this. But no, why are you protesting the end of the mandate? You're free. And again, if you still want to wear the goddamn thing, wear it. Nobody's stopping you, as far as I know. And if there is a clause in the Nevada handbook for students, let me know, and I will tell you I was wrong, and they are actually banning masks. But as far as I know, you're still free to wear one around the campus, as these people are exercising their freedom to do. But they want you to do it. And they want to use the administrative office as the bully so they don't have to bully you into doing it. A little bit of a follow-up to that from News 4 on your side. UNR students walk out to protest the end of campus mask mandates. From Ben Marguillot. UNR students and some faculty walked out on Monday to protest the end of the Nevada mask mandate. About 50 students marched from the north end of campus down to the quad, calling on President Brian Sandoval to reinstate the mask requirement on campus. President Sandoval said late last week that he believes he doesn't have the authority to unilaterally reimpose a mask mandate on his campus. Chemistry professor Dr. Kent Irvin, the head of the Nevada Faculty Alliances, disagrees. I think that's actually questionable because all the time we do policies at the university level to protect the safety of our students. Irvin said, a petition circulating online to reinstate the mask requirements at NSHE campuses has received about 1,700 signatures as of Monday afternoon. Yes, govern me harder, Daddy. But again, it's not govern me harder on these people. It's go govern all those other evil Republicans harder. We will continue to wear the mask. Go govern those people over there because they are free to do so. But they want to use, like I said, the administrative apparatus, the schools, the law, the government to go do their bullying for them. Always have and always will. From the Daily Wire. Speaking of masks. You can wear the mask on your fucking balls, school board member screams at maskless man giving public comment. From Hank Berrien. A Board of Education member in a suburban Chicago community cursed at a man who claimed he has a medical exemption for not wearing a mask. As the maskless man spoke during the public comment period of the meeting, board member Joel Taub snapped, "You can wear the mask on your fucking balls. If you don't wear the fucking mask, get the fuck out of here." Yeah, that sounds about like a Chicago area. I wonder if Chilaga or MK Ultra were in the area, going to the school board meeting. The exchange occurred at a meeting at Glenbrook High School District 225 Board of Education. The board represents the towns of Northbrook, Glenview, and parts of Northfield Township. The man offering public comment at the meeting, where the audience in a video of the meeting can be seen all wearing masks, began by saying, "I'm starting my clock here, so I'll stay the exact 2 minutes." The moderator interrupted, said, "I'm sorry, sir, you need to put on your mask." The man, whose first name is Mark, replied, "Should I stop my clock? I can't. President Biden and J.B. Pritzker both speak without a mask, and I do have an exemption. Will you allow me to speak? Please, I'm not going to interrupt you when you speak." Do we have a video? I think we do.
I'm going to call Mark Wiremullen, I think it is.
Well, Mark Wiremullen, I'm starting my clock here, so I'll stay the exact 2 minutes.
I'm sorry,
And
sir, sir, I need you to put on your mask.
Should I stop my clock? I can't. Presidents Biden and J.B. Pritzker both speak without a mask. And I do have an exemption. Will you allow me to speak? And please,
I'm sorry,
I'm not going to interrupt you when you speak.
I'm sorry,
Right.
sir, it's the rule. You need to keep your mask on.
I have an exemption. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole thing about explaining to you. I don't even know you guys. And I don't want to explain my medical situation. And I thought I'd be allowed to speak. Can I restart my clock? I'm at
No, you
38
can stop your
seconds
clock
now.
for a second if you could just maybe 1 moment.
I mean, I'm at 41 seconds and I'm 2 lines into my speech.
Sir, we'll start your clock again. Don't worry.
I'm
Don't
sorry.
Don't worry about your clock for the moment. Okay, we'll come.
Well, I'm nervous because you're telling me I can't speak. I'm ready to speak.
We need to have you put on your mask, sir. That's we
I
have to follow the
I
law.
can't speak with my mask on. I can't articulate. I have a medical, but you're not going to honor medical and
No, if you have a
religious
medical
exemptions?
exemption, okay, that's
I mean,
fine, sir.
I
We'll
mean,
take
I'm
you- we'll take your
embarrassed.
word.
It's humiliating for me. So, okay. Can I reset my clock?
Just start again. Go ahead,
I'm
sir.
resetting to 2 minutes. I'm
You're gonna
sorry.
let him speak without a mask.
Okay.
Well, he's got a medical exemption.
Now he's interrupting me. I mean,
do
you
we
guys
know?
are rude.
How do we know?
Do I get to speak or not? Do I get to speak? Who's this? Are you the mask police? Can I speak or not?
We'll let you speak. Just one moment, please. Mr. Taub, did you have a question?
Is he in charge?
Okay. So
Are you in
what's-
charge?
No, Mr.
I'm
Taub.
speaking
Are
as
you in
public
charge?
comment.
Are you
You
in
said,
charge?
you said at the beginning of the meeting,
you in
you would not be
charge?
rude to people.
Enough.
Are you in charge?
Mr. Taub. Mr. Taub.
We should remove him. I mean, this is
Mr.
rude.
We'll start your 2 minutes now, sir.
I'm,
This is not what you promised. You said if they don't wear a mask, they can't speak.
I have a mask. I could wear the mask on my head if you want. I mean, it's just.
You can wear your mask on your fucking balls.
Okay, enough.
Get the fuck out of here.
Enough. We're going to take recess for 5 minutes. Please. We'll take
Get him
a
the
5
fuck
minute
out of
recess.
the room if he can't put his fucking mask on.
Mr.
So I guess my first question here is, why is there a Bostonian? Because I recognize that accent quickly. That is South Boston, probably about halfway between Boston and Rhode Island. I recognize that one. I know. I spent 2 years listening to that very accent, so I know exactly what's going on with that. But I mean, I look at this here, and the guy rushes in to go take the microphone away because they don't want this guy to be heard. But I mean, also, let's back up. What happens here when they're starting? Watch. When they come back out and say, okay, well, we're going to go back on recess, and somebody on the board says, get him the fuck out of here. Watch.
Beginning of the minute,
you in
you would
charge?
not.
Watch right here.
Enough.
Are you in charge?
Mr. Taub. Mr. Taub.
We should remove him. I mean, this is rude.
This guy is braced. Whoops.
Go
away. This dude is braced, ready for action right here.
2 minutes now, sir.
Watch him.
This is not what you promised. You said if they don't wear a mask, they can't speak.
I have a mask. I could wear the mask on my head if you want. I mean, it's just.
You can wear your mask on your fucking balls.
Okay,
You don't wear the
enough.
fucking mask.
Enough.
Get the fuck out of here.
And there he comes, right there. Ready to go yank the guy up out of the room.
Enough. We're going to take recess for 5 minutes. Please. We'll take.
Get him.
Get the microphone out of there. Get the microphone out of there. We can't let somebody speak unless he wears the holy talisman. What a fucking crock of shit. I'm so glad I don't live in that state down below, and the only time I go down there is to go hiking in the state park, where no masks are required. I am so fucking glad I don't go down to that shithole state. Sorry for those of you who live there. But speaking of the mass accent, we'll do one more here, then we will do something that I'm thankful for, something that restores my faith in humanity, and head out of here for the day. So, reading from WGN 9. Massachusetts preschool closes, apologizes after blackface incident. This is kind of funny. I did pre-read this one. This comes to WGN via the Dissociated Press. Newton, Massachusetts. Massachusetts Montessori preschool has shut down and apologized after a classroom full of toddlers painted black faces on paper plates and held them up to their own faces to celebrate Black History Month. There you go. The dumbest thing I have read today. And that's a stretch. I mean, the dumbest thing I've read today, what the shit. I see kids in Newton, Massachusetts, in a statement posted on Facebook and on the school's front door Sunday, said the curriculum was not executed or completed in the manner it should have been, so we apologize. The teacher who planned and executed the February 8th activity was fired. Management says because possible protests at the school could put the children at risk, it was closing for the time being. Dude, you're not going to have protests like that in Massachusetts. Especially not for something that fucking stupid. My God, though. Jeez. And then, I mean, Newton. I believe I've been to Newton before. Let me double check that, because I want to see where that is. I might not have been. Let's just look at the map here for a second. Yeah, no, I haven't been up that far as I know. I thought it was further down. I thought it was further south from where I lived. But no, it's actually like right as the Mass Pike goes into Boston. So I've technically been in there because I've taken the Mass Pike into Boston before. I was a passenger at the time, thank God. But yeah, I've technically been to Newton. But it's just, you are basically inner city Boston progressive. And yet somehow you thought this was a good idea. Somehow, some way, after Ralph Northam, after Megyn Kelly, after finding easy ways to go detract from people that the left doesn't like, and giving people like Northam and Jimmy Kimmel a pass, you thought this was a good idea. Oh, hey, because you're a progressive school in Boston, you maybe thought that you would have gotten a pass. Why do I do this to myself? Why do I read this stupid shit? I lose faith in humanity. Oh, well, that's why we do the segment at the end of something that restores my faith in humanity, I guess. We've got to, after seeing stupid shit like this. Man, this drives me crazy. But on that, we gotta close the show. We gotta head out of here for the day. But before we do, after seeing something so blackpilling, we do have to do something that I am thankful for. And, you know, there's always so much to be thankful for out there. And we just have to remember what it is to be thankful for. And I mean, this week, you know, I just railed on Illinois and Massachusetts. So I do have to say that because I already said it before, I'm thankful I don't live in that fucking shithole down there. I'm thankful I don't work in that shithole anymore either. Because I might have screamed at somebody during the Pinko Pox thing if I had to work in that shithole. I don't think I could ever bring myself to take up residence in Illinois. I don't think that is a thing in the cards for my future anywhere for any time whatsoever. And if it was, it would be because some news company based out of Chicago, which is never going to look at me anyway, but some news company, WGN, would have to pay me a bunch of money and put me in the poshest district in inner city Chicago. The fanciest, poshest place that they could possibly get me in a high rise. And since that's never going to happen, I will never ever take up residence in that state. I'll go through it. I'll pay the tolls every once in a while if I need to go somewhere or something. But I'm thankful that I don't live there. I'm thankful that I can go and access it if I want to because I'm close enough to do so. But it's the same thing with Massachusetts. I'm actually very glad I lived in Massachusetts because coming out of Massachusetts, when I went to Massachusetts, I was a Union Democrat. But I got a preview of what the progressive movement was. I got a very, very big preview of what the progressive movement was because whereas for the most part here in the Midwest where I live, when I moved out there in 2008, in 2006, the Democrat Party was still mostly the working man's party, the Union Party. They were starting to shift at the time. The big shift didn't come until 2008, but I mean, Massachusetts was already going there. They were already going in that direction. They were going into, you know, I remember my former friend Ryan, who won't talk to me now because now that he knows that I'm, well, he used to be conservative. Now I'm just non-partisan at all because they're all fucking stupid. He won't talk to me now, but when he used to talk to me, we were talking about, because I was scared that with all the money that it was going to be a rich red state. And the first thing he told me was, a red state? No, Massachusetts was the first state to legalize gay marriage. We used to be known as the Bay State, now we're the gay state. One of the first things that I've ever heard, one of the first ways I was ever heard Massachusetts described was that way right there. But I'm glad I got to see some of the progressivism and learn where it was coming off of this. I would not have recognized the problems in Barack Obama's primary agenda had I not gone out and lived out there. I probably would have recognized him still, but to actually see where it goes and what happens with that, and some of the taxation, some of the high cost of living that comes with that it does seem like they're now trying to export across the country, so people stop leaving the cities and stay in their cities where they can stay in their echo chambers. I mean, if there's no benefit to going out to a lower cost of living area, why would you ever do it when you can stay in the cities and in the convenience? Well, you could always not like crowding too, but there it is. And I'm glad other things have happened out there. I know that there was a proposal in Madison for a while to outlaw septic tanks and well water. They wanted everything to be on city water, which would destroy rural living and most of the agricultural sector as well. I'm thankful that didn't go through. But mostly I am thankful that I have access to, I can see some of the progressive problems of states like Illinois. Well, even though Illinois, I mean, for the most part is mostly based, except for that one little section down there over next to Lake Michigan. That's enough to go back and cause problems in Springfield and the rest of the state as well, especially for taxation. I'm glad I have access to the state. I'm thankful for that, but I am so thankful I don't live there. And with that, I think we're going to be done. I think we're going to head out of here for the day. Do we have outro music? I think so. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted with me. I hope I didn't ramble your ears too much, because when I go in lack of sleep, my mouth comes off into gear. It helps to keep me awake. I mean, you guys all saw the 24-hour stream. You know how I get when I'm on low sleep here, but come back and join me tomorrow, hopefully better rested, for more news, more headlines, and hey, at any time now, we might see that Russia is invaded, that we are at war with the Ukraine, and World War III has started. We have no idea. Or Civil War II has started because so many people disagree with Biden going over there. Any number of things could happen right now. We're on the precipice of a lot of things, and I hope that things chill the fuck out before we get to a lot of them. Come back and see me tomorrow, and we'll talk about what happened in the next 24 hours here, and we will see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.